Okay, perfect. Well, this is, I think, our 30th or 31st presentation, and this one is how to choose a man. We try to do one of these every 3 to 4 months, and what we talk about is understanding men from a criminological and a psychological component of how men think, some of the focal concerns, tips for people out there trying to date. Also, if you're a man, there's a lot of content in here that are probably hit close to home, especially the journey. Because one of the issues that we have with relationships is a lot of times we don't really know each other the way we could. And also involved, there are going to be some deep questions as well, so that people can have those type of important conversations they need to connect with the right people. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Terrence Finley. I'm a criminologist. I also do a lot of relationship coaching and working with companies. Now, Ryan is our engineer, and unfortunately, he just doesn't have time to continue to work on the presentations for the foreseeable future. He's in the background running some other stuff with the companies, and he's being an engineer. So, for probably the next couple presentations, I'm going to be doing them solo, along with help from my wife, as well as Andrea and Jeannie, who we greatly appreciate. And Ryan will be missed, but we're going to keep chugging along until he's able to come back. So this is my wife. Me and her will be talking about certain concepts on the Patreon as well as the YouTube. So just prepare. We're going to talk about, some relationship improvement stuff, as well as just, things that go on in relationships and what do those conversations look like. So this is where we're going to start. This is part one of a three-part series, and this is supposed to give you a great dating blueprint in 2026. And the first thing we're going to talk about is this concept of the incel versus the wincel. And when a lot of women tell me like they're having trouble finding quality men, they don't know where the men are, they're seeing the social scene, let bars and clubs and certain places just not reflective of what they are looking for from a relationship. It's this concept that is going to become more widespread, which is how men, especially good men, are separating themselves from a lot of the places that we historically know of where people, go out and date. The next part is part two. We're going to talk about focal concerns of high level men. And that's really about starting those conversations, like how to have deep conversations with guys. What are some of the issues that men have to go through, as well as their own ability to feel safe and secure in a relationship? And a lot of times we don't think of that. We don't think about how many times people want to talk to each other, but they don't feel safe and secure. And the last part is going to be giving specific strategic advice. There's different advice for different people. Are we looking to get, are we dating in our 20s or dating in our 50s? And what I'm going to go through is some different advice and strategies depending on what you're looking for, where you're looking, and age groups as well. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So this is extremely important. So this is the 5 stages of romantic acquisition. So if I want a long-term relationship with someone, this is the 5 stages that I have to have. First is the awareness stage. And the awareness stage is becoming aware of the kind of person who fits you. So we don't want to go out there and look for a specific person using a generic template. We should start thinking of what do I need in my life? What kind of relationship do I want in my life? What kind of lifestyle do I want? And get very clear about that. Next part is access, and it's getting access to the places or locations where that type of person frequents. So after we have the thought process of the type of person we want, next is where is that person's located? The next part is ability. So it's having the ability, the knowledge, skills needed to attract that person. And the reason that this is important is virtually all relationship books that you commonly find available, they're only talking about one or two of this process, not the entire process. where it doesn't help if I know what I want if I don't know where to get it. And if I know where to get it, how do I communicate with that person? And then once I communicate, how do I actually make sure I have an actual commitment? Because we don't want a situational ship, something where it's not clear what type of relationship I actually have with this person. So you got to have a clear commitment. And then the last phase is the maintenance phase. So now the person is in your life, there's a long-term commitment. How do we make sure we keep growing together? Because if you don't grow together, you start growing apart with your significant other. And part one, two, and three, we're going to go through this entire process. We can't do it all at once because that would make this event like 6 or 7 hours, and I can't keep you online that long, even if I want to. Also, just I realized somebody sent me a message. I will unmute everyone so we can, do Q&A and questions and answer at the end. Just in case no one, just in case you haven't experienced that. So at the end, that's where we can unmute and have a conversation. So this is where people usually start. They say, where did the men go? And, people go, they think about fitness centers, they think about professional conferences, lectures, nightclubs, hobby-based events. And this is usually what people do. But the most important thing to look for is to try to figure out what is the process this person went through, the man. What is the process he went to in order to become the better version of himself? Because if you understand the process, you know where to find the person. And this is one of the founding tenets. I work with a whole lot of men for relationship coaching. And it's if something in your life is not working, it is an area of your life that either you do not understand or you're not applying truth to it, period. So a lot of the places that we look for to find high quality men, they're not the places the man has to go to build himself up. And over the next 16 or so slides, I'm going to talk about this process because understanding this process and applying this process in conversation, whether you're having conversation at a work luncheon or you're having a conversation at, a coffee shop, understanding this process is like a signal to quality men that you understand them. And I can't stress this enough, how important it is for a guy to feel understood. And where this process of being understood is important because in order for him to become a good person, he had to likely shed everyone in his life that wasn't good. And this is extremely difficult. This was a difficult process. And this is something where so many men, they really need coaching or therapy, but they've never got it. And they don't even realize that they need it. So these are three questions that create deep emotional conversations with men. And there are also, these are two movies and one show. Each of these are extremely popular in male circles, and even bringing this concept up makes you a very interesting person, especially if you're talking to, guys. One is the movie Drive. It was a movie with Ryan Gosling. It came out a while ago. And one of the questions I ask to guys is I say, um, have have you heard of this movie? And do you experience loneliness like the character in that movie? If you ever saw the movie, me and my wife watched it recently. It's a great example of that loneliness that a lot of men feel, where you're not connected to the people you want to be. You're trying to be a good person, and the environment around you might drag you down to the point where you might have to leave the environment. This is extremely common event, especially in people coming from urban locations where their community was just going to hold them back. Another example is the movie 300. This is a very popular movie. I remember this movie came out when I was a teenager, and it was huge. And it was huge because it was one of the first times a lot of young men ever saw, like on the big screen, this concept of having friends and brothers that you could really rely on. So many of us, we either don't have brothers or you don't have friends that you can rely on. And this is actually one of the most hurtful parts of the trauma that a lot of young men go through is losing their best friends, losing those friends that they relied upon, losing that social circle. Some of them never recover. I know it took a long time for me to recover when I lost certain friends because you cared about them so much. You cared about them like brothers, and you might have paid for them when you went to get something to eat. You might have helped them money, given them money to help them fix their cars. And it's so hurtful when they left. There's something called the psychology of dependency. And this is the concept where even if you help people, they might resent you because every time they see you, they think about how dependent they were on you. So what often happens with good men is good men try so hard to protect and take care of their friends, to take care of other people. And what they're often given is resentment later on. And the very people you struggle to keep in your life will eventually be the ones that leave you. So these are that's a very deep conversation that men often have, and they need therapy over and they need coaching and counseling over. But to even understand that process is huge. The last one is this question I ask a lot. Did you experience that you had to fight your greatest battles alone? So a lot of guys that, they might have a good job, they might, be very important to their communities. They feel a certain level of sadness because they're getting, attention, they're getting praise, they're getting, all that positive reinforcement, but now they're getting it when they no longer really need it. Because when they needed people in their life, they didn't have anyone. And this is just a common story I find over and over and over again with all the thousands of men I've talked to, with all the men I coach. And it's a common theme you see in movies where the main character, to really solve his or even her problem, a lot of this work had to be done by themselves. All right, going to the next slide. So I'm going to go through three more emotional quotes. And these are quotes that keep coming up in my coaching sessions from men. And it was the best of times and the worst of times. So what happens is so many guys, and this is especially guys that have problematic relationships with their fathers. They end up having to go through these tough times of adolescence, of teenage years, of the early and mid 20s, really figuring out things on their own. No one gives them a playbook. Hey, this is how you're supposed to operate as a man. Hey, this is where you go where all the other high level men are at, and they will look at you as a peer. They have to figure this out on their own. But when looking back at it, those are beautiful times because those were the times that helped formed his toughness. The next one, everyone turns to me for help, but who do I turn to? So this is something I have experienced. My wife has seen it. My family members have seen it. In general, people turn to me in my family or in my friend group. So I get tons and tons of calls every week from people that need help. Other than clients. These are just family members and friends. But who do I turn to? See, I have to turn to myself. And it took a while to realize that, but it's necessary. But acknowledging that and understanding that is so powerful. The next one, and this is something that I get from fathers. Fathers or guys that are in love. And this is one of the reasons that a lot of men struggle trusting and being in love. Is being in love is like having a medical procedure where your heart now lives outside your body. So many of the men I know, they care so much for their friends, they care so much for their family that it's almost as if their heart no longer resides in their chest. It's completely dependent on how their loved ones are doing. And so when you look at this hookup culture, when you look at so many people that are struggling to connect, one of the reasons is they're terrified to connect because they don't know how to do it in a safe way. So just these, these conversations, these quotes are extremely important. And if you want to know how to apply it in a real world situation, just let me know in Q&A and I'll show you exactly how to apply it. So what I want to talk about is this wake up moment. And this wake up moment is why it's so difficult right now to find quality men in basic places. In this wake up moment, I really noticed it during COVID, but it had been building to this moment ever since more and more men started spending time on the internet. And what I'm talking about is the glue guy. So the guy in the middle of the picture, and in most male groups, there is a guy keeping that group together. It's the guy that's really good at planning. It's the guy that's really good at keeping the conversations together. He's the one that everybody really is around. And the group will rise or fall with that glue guy. And what has happened over the last years is more and more of these groups, the glue guy is missing. And that is because more and more of these high level men, the best, the great guys, are only spending time with other high level men. And when I say high level, I'm not talking about necessarily income. I'm talking about this is somebody that's really good at solving problems. He's really good at forming friendships. He's really good at having high levels of empathy. He's the one, the quote unquote hero from the movies. He's the one that keeps everyone together. But one of the things we have found out, and I'm going to be writing my second book about this concept, is that guy has realized the best friendships for him are to just be with other high level guys. And more of this crisis of loneliness, you see it all the time, there's a male loneliness epidemic. What it is a failure to make friends. And the guys that are really, really good at making friends, the guys that are really, really good at making plans, they're only making friends with the highest level guys they can. And this is creating an epidemic where if someone doesn't understand this concept and they're still trying to make casual friends, they will just have casual friends. But the deep friends, the people that you can call at 2 o'clock in the morning to be helpful and that will listen, they're more and more just associating with each other. Case in point, can anybody in the chat, does anybody know who these three people are? Even though these three people are probably one of the most influential individuals in human history. Okay. No, no, no. Okay, these three guys created YouTube. They created YouTube, and when you look at their story, they created it YouTube by themselves. The guy Steve Chen, he funded YouTube using his credit cards. And this is a perfect example of this because so many of these high-level guys are speaking with each other. When you look back at the original YouTube, me and my wife are going to talk about the video because there's a video from when YouTube was when its in its infancy. There was only 60 videos up there. And there one of the videos is of them and they're talking about quitting. The video is them being so discouraged that they're not getting any help. They're not getting help from family members. They're not getting help from friends. They're not getting help from the people around them. And they're literally thinking about quitting YouTube right then and there. 1.5 years later, they ended up selling their shares of YouTube for 1.6 billion. And this is becoming more and more common, is you're getting small groups of men that just work together because we see this template over and over again of if I want to become a good runner, if I want to become good at speaking Spanish, if I want to become good at this, I have to be around other men that are extremely disciplined. Because, like me, myself, I don't know how many times I've looked at groups where guys say, hey, we're going to create a business. Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And what ends up happening is one or two guys do all the work. It's just like being in high school all over again, where there's a group project and you have one or two people doing all the work. And what's happening is men are realizing that if I want the best life for myself, I have to be around other high level people. The other thing that's ironic is people say, okay, where do you find these people at? And I always tell them it's the knowledge. If you have the knowledge and you can employ it in different conversation, it doesn't matter where you at. They actually negotiated the deal to sell their shares in YouTube at a Denny's. So people are over there eating their Grand Slam omelets and they're, basically closing in on deals that's going to give each one of them a couple $100 million each. So that's another example of never underestimate where you're at and never underestimate the people around you. Momina, a lot of the car shows I used to go to, like with me and my friends, and we have fun and do all this other stuff. We used to go to Leo's Coney Island. And we all have multiple degrees, we all run companies and do whatever, but if you just want decent eggs and some hash browns, you never know. So that's one of the reasons that never underestimate what is around you and who is around you. Because great individuals, a potential boyfriend, a potential husband, a potential great contact could be right next to you, but you're not paying attention. Okay. Now, this is the important process, though, of, and I'm spending so much time on psychology because psychology is really how to connect with these people. Is the day that changes his life. And I've talked to so many young men, I've talked to older men. It's all of this process. And one of it, quit your job, get healthy, live fully. So when I say quit the job that you're getting a paycheck from, but the paycheck is just another excuse for the guy to give up on his dreams. So many individuals, especially with the advent of AI, and if you spend any time in some of these AI groups, especially these AI groups where people are talking about scaling their company, you're seeing people that are tired of being disrespected by their bosses. They're tired of begging for time off and the boss says yes or no. You have people that are deciding, you know what, I'm going to take a risk on myself. I'm going to create that business. I'm going to travel. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to get healthy. One of the biggest things that happens with my coaching when I'm coaching young men or older men, doesn't matter, is they got to go to the gym. They got to get their bodies right. It's hard to have a clear mind when the body's not willing. And the other part is live fully. So many individuals don't realize that if you start coming up with a story of how you want to live, how attractive that is. You know, there's individuals they've committed to wanting to go on roller coasters all over the world, create a YouTube channel and an Instagram following off of that, and now they're funding that world. There's so many different ways to decide how to live your life. You just have to decide how to live your life. But one of the easiest ways to start that conversation was you start asking people, how did you decide to go on the path that you needed to go on? And was there an easier path that you could have went down, but you decided not to? Okay. Now, once we know that there are two paths, I want to help people understand the concept of the incel versus the wincel. But if you spend any time on the internet, you're going to hear about the concept of the incel, which is an involuntary celibate. And what we mean is this person is likely not sexually active, but even deeper than that, he often doesn't have friends. He doesn't have good friends in his life. He's often reactive. He's blame focused. There's a scarcity mindset. He seeks validation. and he looks at himself as often powerless. So when you think of a troll online, when you think of the person that spends their time arguing on YouTube comment forums and stuff, that's likely an individual that's life's not going particularly well for him. Now I approach people with empathy because nobody who's living a great life spends their life tearing down the happiness of others. This is somebody who needs help. This is somebody who definitely needs a friend, needs caring, and but the way they're going about it pushes people away. It's actually something called a reverse ego fallacy, where you pretend that you don't need what you want in order to protect your ego. But the person that often becomes this cares so much, doesn't really know how to express themselves, and where they're at, it seems so far away to become a better version of himself. You don't, it's unfortunate when people get to this level. I don't know when they're going to recover because it's going to depend on when they're willing to face themselves, all the things that they don't want to currently face. But while this is going on, there's another typology, which I call the win sale. And this is a wise, intentional celibate. And I'm seeing more and more of this. A couple years ago, I was even at schools in Detroit and I was filling in as a substitute teacher just to see what's going on, what's going on with what they're being taught. And even in some of the worst schools in Detroit, I'm starting to notice that there are young boys out there who have an unbelievable level of competence in what they're trying to learn. I'm talking to, boys 14 or 15, and they're already making 4 grand, 5 grand a year off their YouTube or Instagram following. They're deciding how to start a business. They're already separating themselves. It's like the person 14 or 15, but they sound like somebody 34 or 35. But what's happened is this person, their psychological age is so far beyond the young men around them that they become separated from them. And what is happening is the incel and the wincel are both separated from a lot of society. But the wincel often becomes the best kind of guy. He works hard, he does all this, but he does it regardless of how he feels. He just focuses on his goals. He focuses on building and becoming a better version of himself. And this concept is extremely important because you're going to see it over and over again. When you notice how celebrities move, notice that they all kind of stay in this own little pack. Notice how they all kind of they know each other. If you've ever done like research on those worlds, they often go to the same clubs, they go to the same places. And now this concept is being like leaked all the way down here. So if I'm looking for basic places to find high level people, it's going to become more and more difficult to find these people by chance. All right. So this is the basic trajectory. And so many young men get stuck. First of all, they get stuck on undecided. They never decide what they want to do with their life. It's the epitome of just being in the middle. They never decided, I want to get good at this. They never decided whether they truly want a family. If they have a family, they haven't decided what they want to teach their kids, what kind of deep relationship they would like to have with their wife. They're just undecided. Now, as we move further up the trajectory, they have to overcome fear, obstacles, doubt, all those things. And the important thing to really notice is up until recently, it was extremely hard to find a basic template for a young man to figure out how to navigate this. Like if you didn't have a good community, if you didn't have a good father, How do you figure this out? Trial and error, trial and error over and over and over again. But now there are outcomes. There's ways to see. And this is actually now creates the opportunity. Somebody last presentation asked me a very good question. I'm going to butcher it because I mean, I had talked for like 4.5 hours up to that point. But it was asked like who taught me like how to understand masculine energy and stuff. And I had to think for a second. I wasn't really taught this. I had to figure it out. Like, I never had a man just sit me down and explain to me, hey, this is how you manage your testosterone. Hey, this is how you manage your anger. This is how you manage your insecurities. I had to like figure it out. So I went and really thought about it. And the first real inclination that I had to like really understand who I want to be, I found in a YouTube video. And I don't know if you ever heard L. Nightingale. He's a very popular person in male circles. He wrote the book uh, right here. It's called The Strangest Secret. And the strangest secret, and this is not just for men, but it was, his books were geared towards a male audience, was we become what we think about. And in that book I read, even back then, this is older than the 1980s, was that the majority of men do what other men are doing, and they never decide to get particularly good at anything. And when they're in their elder years, they don't even have enough money to take care of themselves. And that was such a huge concept for me because it's like between when I read that book and in the 1980s, very few have changed. It's still only 5 to 10% of men really get their life together. So I realized nothing's going to change in my life if I don't change. So I went from crying for help to trying myself. And this is a concept that almost every good man has gone through. Like in most of these male circles you deal with, it's men dealing with the fact that the people around them abandoned them at one phase or another. Their best friends, even their family, and they had to manage a lot of this stuff by themselves. And this is going to become a lot more important when we get to part two of the presentation later on in March, because most most women I talk to have said they don't know how to have deep conversations with men. You're not going to have deep conversations with a guy unless he has decided that you're safe. And what I mean by safe is you might have to deal with 18 or 19 or 20 years of trauma in that moment when he's honest about what it was like to be him. You'll hear the stories, you'll hear the sadness, you'll hear all that he's holding in. And so many of these men don't want to be a burden on others. They're not used to people caring about their feelings. Like when I went to what I thought were high level circles where men were professionals and all this, I thought it was going to be different. But no, now all I have is people with making more money still crying on my shoulder. But that's what I'm here for. And so many of the men you deal with on a daily basis, they've never told people that this is what they went through because it was so hard to admit that when he wanted to change his subject in school, his dad got mad at him, or something happened where he didn't have a good relationship with his mother. And during that period of time, he was isolated from love, or his best friend left him when he needed him most. And so many of the guys we're looking for are emotionally withdrawn because that's the only way they've been able to protect themselves. The the strategy they use to protect themselves since they were teenagers now becomes a barrier to connecting with others. But more and more of them are getting help, getting coaching, getting counseling, getting all those things. But they're doing it in circles away from most of society. So this goes to that concept of 12:45 at a.m. This is a good question to ask somebody, especially a guy, is did you ever have that 12:45 a.m. moment where you wanted to quit? And what was that like? And it's such a great question. I don't care if you have to ask it, at a coffee shop or something, because so many of the times we're not having useful conversations with people. We're talking about topics or we're talking about gossip. But when we say, you know what, 3 years ago, I didn't even think I was going to make it here. It was late at night and I had to get this proposal done and I wanted to quit so bad, but I kept going. And then I realized, why am I working so hard for this company that doesn't care about me? I'm going to start working for myself. I'm going to start working for an identity that doesn't exist yet. And the more we're able to have these kind of conversations, the more we're able to attract individuals that are not there just to connect with somebody on the physical level, but they're there to connect with somebody on the mental level. High level coffee shops are really good about that. When I say high level, I mean coffee shops that people go to get work done, because part of it is to get work done, but it's also to connect with other people. So this is a concept that I would often bring up, is that so many of men and women, they're not given positive reinforcement until they're at the finish line. That's when people want to enter your life. That's when people want to be your friends. That's when people really value you. Is now you're at the finish line, you're on the precipice of success. And so this is one of the reason that, especially men have so many trust issues, is something happens in their life and they become attractive, but they still look at themselves the way they looked at themselves when they didn't have anybody. So they see the faces, but they don't really see the faces. And when you start reading, like when you read a lot of content from men, especially the books, there's that concept of, do these people even really like me? If I didn't have these things, if I didn't have this credential, if I didn't have this house, would people even really like me? And there's that, again, safety and security of, I want to feel safe around people. But there's also that concept that if I didn't have this, they would leave. Now we make this full circle. And when we talk about relationships, you never get the life you never planned to have. When we start going deeper into the workshops and to get very specific, you got to be clear of what kind of life you want to have. And we have so much power. And I've worked with so many clients with this, is when you get a piece of paper down, or heck, you can do it on your computer. Start deciding what kind of life you want to have. Because the guy out there has decided the life he wants to have. What kind of experiences he wants to go through, what kind of company he wants to build, or maybe he wants to keep be very good at his profession, and what places he wants to see. We need to get better at telling the story of our existence. I know, like, one of the first things that I remember when I talked to my wife for the first time, we were at a coffee house and we were talking, is she had never seen the ocean before. She had never seen the ocean. And I grew up in Detroit, but also my parents were divorced and they were in Florida. And my dad lived in Florida. And I love the ocean. I absolutely love the ocean. And while we're talking, I wanted to see her expression of the ocean. And when she was talking about other experiences that she, was interested in having, they were experiences that I wanted to share as well. So a lot of times the person for us in our life could be the person right in front of us, but we haven't explained how we want to live. But as we explain how we want to live, we find comrades and we find partners that want those experiences as well. So if you leave with 5 things today, it's to get very clear on your goals, get very clear on the type of friends you want to have, get very clear on the experiences you want to have, get very clear about your hobbies, and get clear about your commitments. Dedicating to these 5 things, if you haven't already, will create a completely different life for you. Completely different. That's one of the first things you see in almost all content geared towards males is you might have to get new friends. You might have to get friends that are more in line with the commitments and experiences you want to have. Because we don't see life. We see the version of life we focus on, nothing less. And with that said, and I talked a little bit about this in the last presentation, we only usually focus on less than 1% of the people in our communities. We walk right by potential opportunities every day, potential commitments. I don't know if somebody saw this on the presentation last time, but people ask me like, where can I find a great guy? I say, I meet guys all the time in a very funny place. I meet them at the pet food aisles at Meijer and Walmart. And I used to see it, especially back when Walmart used to be open 24 hours a day. Like sometimes, my cat would just destroy something, and I'd be like, okay, I need to get a new scratching pad. Thank you for letting me know. And I'll be out at Walmart at, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and while you're there, you can't just buy a scratching pad. You got to get some more stuff. And I would come across another guy that was in a very similar situation as me. And we would, talk about our pets, talk about our life. And we wouldn't need a long conversation, but men tell me so much about themselves, about how they treat the things and the people that they care about. I heard a quote a long time ago. I forgot who said it, but you don't really become an adult until you become accountable for something, until you protect something. And if you watch the way a man protects his animals, especially if he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have any kids, that tells you a lot about what you can expect from how he will treat you or other friends or people he's accountable for. And we only have 2 more slides. I want you to think about when you're around men, when you're trying to figure out, is this a good person? How am I not dating based on potential, but on projection? Think about, is he authentic to himself and who he says he is? Is he consistent with that authenticity? Is he empathetic about people that are doing better than him in life financially, or people that are doing worse than him in life financially? That's very important because you need somebody to be able to empathize all the way. I say financially because it's very difficult for a guy to do that, especially when his ego is threatened. But it's important for him to look at people that are doing better than him and people that are objectively doing worse than him. And can he care about both levels? The other part is responsibility. Is this person responsible and accountable for the key decisions he's made in his life? And the last part is self-sacrifice. You want to see that he has a history of self-sacrificing for other people, but also himself. So, like a narcissist and a sociopath and a psychopath, one of their defining traits is they will sacrifice long-term success for short-term gains. So they're actually an enemy to themselves. Mm. That's one of the reasons they struggle so much. They might win in the beginning, but they always lose in the end. But with this said, I want to also give a warning. And what happens is when we have to solve too many things on ourselves, by ourselves, it's possible to go into flex. We start getting rigid thinking instead of flexible thinking. And flexible thinking is what you need for a long-term relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. And flexible is keeping an open mind, open to new ideas, adaptable, open to learning, tries new experiences, more able to deal with stressors, adjust to different circumstances, mindful of their own actions and behaviors. Great idea. Great thing would be, what are we going to have for dinner? We might come up with 3 or 4 restaurants. A flexible person is okay. It doesn't have to be one. We have other options. They don't need one way to solve their problems. They're open to come up with different ways. Their minds are not so constrained. Now, rigid thinking is what often happens when somebody has to figure things out on their own without a lot of help. They become fixed to ideas and preferences and habits. They're unwilling to try new experiences. They struggle to adapt. They have difficulty coping with stressors and challenges. They're resistant to change. They find self often conflict with others, and they struggle to find peace or satisfaction in the moment. And one of the reasons this is important is having a rigid thinking is important when you don't have anyone else you can depend on. It's like, I'm rigidly going to survive this. I'm going to make this work. I don't care what the environment says. I don't care what the people around me says. I'm going to make this happen. But once they're no longer in that survival mentality, they can sometimes we stay just cemented to that way of thinking, even when it's no longer necessary. So what they use to keep themselves alive is now the very thing that shames them from further success. And it's not saying to avoid people completely with rigid thinking, but it has to be acknowledged. And it's often difficult for them to change their mind without professional help. But with that said, I appreciate everybody for the first part of the presentation. I wanted to go through again the psychology first before we start going over tactics and ways to make it easier for us to date. Because if you don't understand how people think, it's hard to connect with them. Now, with that said, part 2 is scheduled for the end of the month. I believe it's already been posted. And after the part 2 of this, part 3 is going to be sometime in March, as well as we're going to do a presentation on 101 questions to ask before you date someone. So this is a combination of criminal profiling and psychology, along with just, fun ways to get to know somebody. So we're going to go through the first part of 101 questions to ask before you date someone. And by the end of the month, because the amount of people wanting consultations has gone up dramatically, I'm going to come up with a lower priced way to get, if somebody just wants to talk for like 15 to 25 minutes, a way that we can incorporate that in the Patreon account. Just because I know everybody has different financial, obligations. So we're trying to figure that out, and please bear with us, but we should have that ready by the end of the month. And with that said, I appreciate everybody's time. And now we are pretty much ready for Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, I'm available for Q&A now. Let's see, Andrea, do we have any questions already ready to go?
Yes, the first question is what percentage of the population is the high value men pool?
Less than 10% at any given time. So one of the quick ways you can figure out that is what percentage of the population has written down goals. It's extremely hard to achieve high levels of success if you don't have written down goals that you're moving towards. And that is around, at any given time, 3 to 8% of the population. The other part of that is, there's also a financial aspect to it, because what you find is it's not that somebody has to have money if they're high value, But if they're high level or high value, they end up making pretty good money because they're valuable. They end up solving problems other people don't solve. They're extremely useful to businesses. They're extremely useful to friend groups. They're extremely useful to the environment around them. And because of that, they can usually do really well in consulting, professional services, and other businesses. So, but at the end of the day, you're talking about less than 10% of the population usually. What do we have next?
Okay. Um, how many men want to connect with women or don't have the confidence or too much trauma that they have not overcome?
Nearly all of them. There's very few men actually say, "Hey, I want nothing to do with women. I don't want anything to do with any of this. I want to be a player for the rest of my life." When you look at the backgrounds of men that think like this, you can almost always find someone dealing with unresolved trauma. You can find somebody that either didn't have a good relationship with his mother. A lot of times it's mother. Didn't have a good relationship with his mother, or they fell in love with someone, but they fell too far in love to where after that relationship no longer worked, they gave up relationships completely. So they just lost hope. But they lost hope because they cared too much, not because they didn't care. Let's see, what else do we have?
Okay. Um, this one, maybe the Zoom user wants to give me the rest of the context. It was the question was posted when you were talking about a specific thing, but the question is, isn't that what all people go through in life? People only want to be with the next winners and are not real friends. Hard to find the ride or die type.
I would say that's what the majority of people are like. But there are good people. Again, that's why you have the concept of the win cell. And, I know many people on this call has seen it, that when things got difficult, who was there for you? So what you find is it's so much easier and smarter, just being honest, to be around people that are committed to you and that there's only so much benefit in being part of uncommitted relationships where they're happy for you as long as they don't have to do a lot of work. That's one of the true tests of a friendship. Will the person listen to you if you need help? And if you're doing well, will they also listen to you? Are they happy for you? It's a two-part process because that process means that the person's ego has to be in check. Because it's very easy when things are going bad for someone to say, I don't really want to pay this person any attention. Or when things are going well, it's easy to be jealous. Very easy. I remember somebody told me this a long time ago, an investigator, is jealousy is insecurity's younger brother. So when we're dealing with people, you need individuals with you that they're not jealous of you and they're not insecure as well of you. They just want to grow with you. And that's extremely important.
Wouldn't you say that a person is jealous is usually someone who's not working on themselves? Because like, how do you have time to, if you're over here worried about someone else, then that tells me you're not working on yourself.
Yeah.
Do you find that
Well,
to be true?
mhm. Well, because they don't believe in themselves. Not like they
Oh,
should.
okay.
They
Okay.
don't they don't believe in themselves. But there's also a biological component to it. I can put in the Patreon account. I got to look up her name, but you can actually find this in children, like really young children, and anyone that's worked in like preschool or kindergarten. You can find the greedy kid in the room that wants a little bit more than everyone else, and it's extraordinarily important that that person be civilized. That this is not how you treat other people because a lot of what we're talking about, these behaviors didn't just start. This person has been like this for a long freaking time. And that's one of the issues is that that person would have to do a lot of work to fix themselves because you're not even talking to an adult at that person. In those moments when they're jealous or insecure, you're talking to a very tall 7-year old, very tall 7-year old. Let me just make sure. Are y'all able to unmute yourselves now? Let me check right quick. Hold on one second. Okay, try it now. Because we have some hands up and I want to take some of these hands. Yep.
Yep.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So I got a question. So I just got out of the relationship yesterday, last night. She Nicole told me that she's gonna stop with the relationship because um she had another guy that she's meeting on a dating app
Hmm.
back in Long Island, and we was actually a long distance relationship, and it was good while it lasted, let's just say that. Now, like when I had to find like how do you actually cope with like she ended a relationship with you and then you had to start all the way from scratch. How do you cope with that?
Yep. One of the first things you'd have to do is you have to change your patterns. That's one of the quickest ways to create new neurological pathways is I want you to look at your patterns. I want you to look at what's around you. And this is the proven way to get over a relationship as quick as possible. However, your environment is set up, change it slightly. Because
Mm,
what happens is we ruminate about the past and we're ruminating about patterns, especially if the person left you. If the person left you, this person is now in your past, and now we have to focus on the future.
right.
Yep. So wherever your bed is, wherever you spend time at, move it slightly around. The other thing that's extremely important is are you already going to the gym?
I go to the gym every day.
Okay, about what time?
In the morning, every morning.
What time in the morning? You getting there before 5?
8, 9 sometimes, but usually 8 earliest.
I'll tell you this right now. It's a completely different animal when you go at like between 4:30 and 5:30. That's where like a lot of the high level men are. But that's also important because those are where some of the best friendships are made. Is the
Yeah.
guys that get to the gym at like 4:30 to 5:30. They're,
PM or AM?
AM, early in the morning. So like when
Oh
you get,
shoot.
yeah, it's a game changer. And another example is if you go to Menards or you go to like Home Depot when it first opens up, that's where all the business owners are, all the high level consultants. So one
Yeah.
of the best things you can do, especially, as a man and you're trying to really level up your life, is realizing all the top quality dudes that are really busy, that are doing all the fun stuff, they're often doing this early in the morning because they have so much more time in their day.
Yeah.
So if I know it sucks, but if you get to the gym early, you end up finding some of the best workout partners. You start becoming friends with like really solid guys. Because I don't know how your whole friendship world is set up, but I would get you.
Yeah, with like me and Nicole. Well, now she's my ex-girlfriend now. I guess you could actually really say that.
Yeah,
But we had a good run. We honestly really had a good run, and I at least I tried.
yeah,
I tried to make it work for Long Island.
yeah.
I tried to make it work. I tried to make the best out of it for long distance. But I guess like it was only a matter of time that she was actually going to go to that pattern, and that I guess you could probably would say that just how the things that's just how things they are. I mean, I know like dating like in a day and generation it sucks because dating that, but it's sad, but that's just how it is.
Exactly. But it also there's all these opportunities now. So, just keep being a solid guy, keep focusing on your self improvement, and you'll meet somebody around. You will.
Yeah.
Majority of people around you want to connect. They might not know how, but they want to connect. Are you reading any good books right now?
Um, I'm yeah, I'm reading good books.
All right, what you got? What you got for me? Like,
Uh, uh,
I don't mean to put you
don't
on the
really think I
spot.
want to say it. I
Okay.
kind of really don't want to say it. Don't want to say it, to be honest.
Yeah, no worries.
I also got another question. I also got another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So 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 Nicole, she likes what I like. She likes Sonic, Mario, Nintendo, Disney movies, and
Mm-hmm.
all the and then like going out to basically anywhere. You know, like going out to eat, to go eat at a day, to go to the movies, and like go into the pool, and then do all those fun stuff. It's kind of sad because I'm not gonna have the same happiness that I was with her. You know, even if I have to start all the way from scratch, which I'm right now getting in the process of it. Like, how do I actually just start it from scratch, and how do I actually know I'm gonna be with the right person if she has the same interests as me? Like I told you for that examples.
Well, because everything you described to me was fun, but they weren't a commitment. They were
Not
fun, but
100%.
they're everything you said was entertainment, but that's not a relationship. That's not somebody that's committed to you. And one of the things you have to do is you have to believe it. So there's there's words we use are extremely important. So when we say I can't or it's going to be extremely difficult, what you're doing is programming your reticular activating system in your mind that this is not possible or it's going to be extremely possible, extremely difficult. And you're it will show up in what you see. So you have to be hyper intentional of every word you say after something like I am or I will.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
like hyper intentional because what you're describing, if I sent you to Comic Con, you could find thousands of people that were just like that and interested in it. I would focus, and this is extremely important, focus on a good book. And the reason why is when you read a good book, you find something in you didn't know was there before.
Mm-hmm.
So a
Mm.
good book like the book, you ever heard of the book Your Next Five Moves?
No.
I'm gonna put it in the chat. It's one of the most popular books for young men getting their life together. And you want to start looking at your life and like, what kind of moves do you want to make in your life? Where do you want to live? What do you want to be known for? What kind of experiences do you want to have?
Oh, you said like five things. So what's the name of the book again?
I'm gonna put it in the chat right now.
Okay.
It's a New York Times bestseller. It's very popular. I always suggest it to men putting their lives together because it ends up being such a game changer for them. It's called Your Next Five Moves. Let me know if you see it. It's in the chat right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. Your next five moves. Oh wow,
Hmm.
$15. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I also taught her salsa dance. I also taught her to salsa dance, and and that I was about to say for that example.
yeah. Well, it's the thing is when somebody cares about you, everything you're talking about is extremely doable. And you'll find that as you put yourself out there, as you're able to see other individuals, you'll find more people out there that are willing and interested in experiences. I got to take some more clients and I got to take some more.
Yeah, that's all the question
But
that I
I,
have,
yeah, but I
sir. Thank you
appreciate you.
so
No, no,
much.
no. I appreciate you because I, it's great for you to have something like that happen, but you're not stopping. You're moving forward. So you
Yeah,
should be proud of yourself.
thank you so much. I know. Thanks for your advice, and I'm
Okay.
glad that I just came to this relationship coach because I just got out of a relationship and I just actually want to ask like how do I actually just move on forward without her without being like long distance
Absolutely.
because I'm in Florida right now. I was from Long Island. I
Yeah.
was from Long Island, New York. I don't know if you've been there,
Oh yeah, I grew up there.
but
Yeah, so yeah, if you can, if you're part of our Patreon is free. That's where I have a lot more content on there, articles, and
Oh,
and
really?
talk about that. Oh yeah, I have a ton of that stuff. So
Oh, that's nice.
yeah. So I appreciate you. Stay warm out there, okay?
Will do. Will do. I'm grateful to be in Florida and not God knows where else. That's all I gotta say. But thank you, though.
All right.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
you.
much.
Take care. All right, Rosanna. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. You're next.
Yeah, Rosanna's fine. Hi, Terrence. Thank you so much for this incredibly helpful session.
You're
Um, I guess I'm curious to know how you can deal with a distinct challenge that I personally have to deal with.
okay. Perfect.
So, one could be living in North America, but their entourage, family members, relatives, and so on, could be from a cultural background where the concept of destiny or luck plays a key role in things like your ability to find a partner. And so oftentimes I'll get this reaction from people or this perception of my not having been able to find someone as something having to do with me maybe not being as lucky, or so that's something I've struggled with. And oftentimes I'll have people tell me, "Oh, how is it that someone like you, of your caliber, with all your attributes and so on, hasn't been able to find someone despite your best efforts?" And so it can be a little disheartening and demotivating, and it just compounds the fact that sometimes you've just run out of steam. You've tried really hard for a number of years and you just haven't managed to find the right person. Or you've been in a toxic, narcissistic relationship. And yeah, so how do you navigate that? This, perspective of um, there having to be an element of luck for you to be able to find the one. It's not just simply a matter of trying hard and being proactive about it. So, yeah.
I mean, there is an element of luck, but you have to put yourself in a situation to become lucky. Like, and what usually happens is that means that there's all these skills we need to have. So a
Hmm.
lot of times we don't look at relationships as a skill, but it's absolutely a skill. It's no different than one of the things people are most afraid of is public speaking. That's a skill, learning how to speak publicly. And when we're trying to figure out why we're single, we have to be honest about what is our skill set. What do we know about what we want, other than what we want, other than the fact we want it? I have yet to speak to somebody who's single who had a good grasp on the type of person they wanted for a long-term relationship. It just doesn't exist. Because I don't know a nice way to put it, nicer than the truth, because I like to speak the truth, is if we really understood what we wanted, we would likely have it. And that's the hard part is if we want a type of relationship. Now, the people that you can always get a relationship, but it might not be great. But when we really take the time to think, what do I know about the type of person I want in my life? How much time has I spent truly learning about that type of person, learning about that world, learning about access to that wherever they're at? And what you often find is they don't know much, but in general, we're not told that we have to do these things. So it's kind of a given that I'm just going to get lucky and find someone. I don't find people that are in high quality relationships particularly lucky. They're qualified. They know their stuff. Like my wife has a PhD in me, basically. She knows me inside and out. I have a PhD in her. The guys I know that are happily married, they know their person inside and out, and their wives know them. Like it wasn't luck. It's a heck of a lot of effort. They had to go to places they didn't know. They had to get skills they didn't have, and they had to try over and over again without knowing when it will work. And that's the process. And it gets more difficult as we get older because as we get older, we get set in our ways. And that's why it's so much more difficult to find someone, especially nowadays, because people are getting set in their ways earlier and earlier. We can blame search engines, we can blame algorithms, we can blame all that. But there's no shame in the fact you're trying, or we're all trying to become better versions of ourselves. Anyone that shames somebody for becoming better versions of ourselves, that's not your friend.
Okay.
Hope that's helpful.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're
Can I
welcome.
go now?
Mindy is next.
Terrence, thank you for your talk.
Oh, you're welcome.
Um, so my question is, I know you talked about like at the beginning a lot about how men go through these issues and how like it's kind of all centered around this loneliness epidemic. Um,
Absolutely.
I was saying this in the comments, and I saw some other people saying it too, how a lot of women also go through the same thing. Like,
Mhm.
I related to like everything you talked about at the beginning, like being like the high achiever in the friend group, and then losing friends and like still recovering from that, and then kind of like getting to a point where you just decided to be a hermit instead of like being around people. Like so my question is do you have any like what advice for dating would you have for a woman like who goes through these similar things? Like in my experience, I found I tended to attract a lot of men where like they were kind of in the position where they had a lot more social support than I did, or like support from their families, and to the point where on the extreme they were like dependent on their parents.
Mm.
So kind of like it was almost like the social norm or whatever is usually stereotypical gets reversed. Um, and then like in my case, I consciously have been choosing to be single like these last couple years, just to work on myself. Like I've been taking classes, investing in myself, um like traveling solo and like reading books, going to therapy. So I've been doing all of it, and then I've still been going out and meeting people, but I still find that it's really hard to connect with people. So like what advice would you have for someone like me?
Okay. One of the questions I would ask is, are you in the present moment when you're talking to somebody? So, like when you're talking to a guy, are you in the present moment? Because what often happens is when we have these bad experiences, instead of talking to the person directly in front of us, we are consciously insecure of ourselves. We're constantly thinking of all the ways it didn't work in the past. But when we're in front of people, so I'm used to getting confessions from drug dealers, from criminals, all kinds of stuff. I'm used to talking to people of all different nationalities, all different ages. Is when we're in the present moment talking to somebody and experiencing what it's like to be them, and they're experiencing what it's like for us to be us. That's when we have true connections. Is this is how I'm living, and this is how I would like to live. One of the dangers of spending too much time away from people, especially when we're going on vacations and all this other stuff, is we're getting very good at taking care of ourselves, but we're not necessarily getting really good at learning how to be present and connecting with other people. And so, whatever our habits have been that got us to this level, we need to be really intentional and say, is this going to help me get to the next level? Especially if we want a long-term commitment, marriage, or any of this other stuff in our future. And we look at where are people trying to connect at and what type of experience will we like to have? Because there's always ways to connect with individuals. You know, and I talk about this every now and then, is that in all the places that historically it's just men, there's now women everywhere. So like in all the places I would, whether I'm going to go shooting, whether I'm going to do archery, whether I'm going to do car racing, whether I'm going to do, there's all these women in these groups now. But they're not there by accident. They're legitimately interested in the subject matter. So one of the questions I would ask is, how would you like to live for the next 3, 5, 10 years? And in order to live that way, what skills would you have to learn? If you already have the skills, where can you go to demonstrate those skills? And then the type of person you want a long-term relationship with. what does that person look like? And the more concrete you can make that person, the easier it is to find that person in real life. But we have to be very careful of distractions. There was a book that came out like I think 30, 40 years ago. It was said the name of the book was Distracting Ourselves to Death. And this is one of the main reasons we're single nowadays, is we have so many distractions that keep us away from connecting with other people. And there are certain communities, perfect example, I was talking to someone earlier, is, people know about CrossFit. A lot of people don't know that the new thing that's happening with gyms are corrective exercise. You have a lot of boomers, you have a lot of Gen X, you have a lot of people that are sitting all day. They're sitting, working from home, doing this, and their backs are getting bad, their legs. So you have more and more communities popping up, not necessarily for yoga, but for corrective exercise and mobility. It's becoming different, new ways that people are connecting with each other, aside from typical entrepreneurship and stuff like that. But, Mindy, when you decide how you want to connect with people, like specifically, and how to do it without being afraid, your life changes.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that. Like I'm like a very independent person. Like I've done everything alone. And then yeah, like I went from like in my like past in my life where I was constantly surrounded by people who weren't serving me to just now going the extreme end where I'm like really focused on myself. And I guess now I'm trying to find a middle balance again, like finding people who actually align with my values and my interests and goals for the future. Um, and then yeah, and I think sometimes it's like hard to find people like with the same values or just like yeah, and being present too. That's definitely something I'm working on.
Yeah. And when I say present, it's that person of, whatever insecurities you have, whatever things are going on with you, that person in front of you often has his or her own set of insecurities. So the more people I talk to, and I talk to thousands and thousands of people a year, the more people I talk to, the more I see sadness, insecurity, and people trying to connect. So that person right in front of you, that person has a story as well. And the more you two are talking about your actual stories and where you would like to go afterwards, the easier it is to bridge the gap between each other.
So would it be about like becoming more interested in who someone is and just like being more authentic?
Yeah, just being more like when somebody says something, what is, how does that resonate with them? How does that resonate with them? Like if you're watching a movie, like me and my wife, what's the name of that movie we saw yesterday? Death Proof or something? Yeah, Death Proof. So we were watching, a movie, and later on, I'll ask my wife, like, how did that resonate with you? What did you think of that character? What was some of the mistakes they made in the movie that is an example of what not to do in real life? Or what was some of the things they did in the movie that was an example of what to do? So we want to start being able to pull more of the beauty from life and looking at things as either cautionary tales or examples of how to live. The more you're able to do that, the richer your conversations become. So
Yeah, that makes yeah.
yeah, try it out. Yeah. And like for more content, again, we have the Patreon and YouTube. Yeah, I appreciate you for sharing. All right. Let's see. Lynn, you're next. Then I'll start answering more questions that I got sent over.
Hi, I'm just trying to ungoogle or unmute myself. Thank you very much for these. I'm very grateful. Um, so I was just trying to figure out how to summarize what to ask you and such. I'm 63.
Mhm.
I did my healing journey work in years past, and discovered about myself, my past, my influences, etc., self-love, boundaries, all of that kind of stuff. And love public speaking. My undergrad's in interpersonal communication. I I believe that I am a good listener. I listen in the moment with conversations. I'm genuinely interested in other people,
Mhm.
and focus on being a good friend. Couple things is that I observe that even with finding like that good close friend,
Yeah.
okay, is very elusive in that it's like you make connections with certain people and you reach out and you connect and all of this, and it's like, okay, the long-term goal would be like, hey, let's I call it like your day-to-day friend,
Yeah.
like you would check in with each other here or there, and you're it's an ongoing day-to-day thing, as opposed to of a wealth of acquaintance friends. I'm active in Meetup and things like this, and I enjoy being with these people in the moment. And but that whether they're busy or whatever their situations are, it's kind of like it's people only have so much to give, as far as what their availability is, or their desire is, or if they already have a couple of friends, those kind of things. So that's one challenge. um, i would say I would say that the other challenge is in so I have a brain injury too, and so I have like some mobility issues. I have different things. I'm continually working on healing from that, so that I can be much more functional and be able to participate in things that I'm not currently able to, but I'm always seeking out to get out there and do every single thing that I am able to do. And so when you had mentioned also about, sitting down and writing down what is it that I would look for in a man, and that list that you had prior, it was like, okay, those were the things on my list. I want somebody who is authentic, is empathic, takes responsibility for their own actions, gives back, being consistent, not just your words, but your actions, just being a true, genuine person. And so that's kind of, I guess, a twofold question to go. I feel like I'm contributing, and even when I'm meeting different people, and say in my bike group or something, having conversations, I'm always aware of it's like the opportunities to talk to both men and women, and I'm comfortable with that. I ask questions. It's like I'm not one that sits and goes, okay, I need to sit and talk about myself. I want to learn about you. I ask questions and then interject when it's appropriate. And that's just a genuine joy for me to learn about people. And so I guess the questions would be like for men as well. It's like, okay, if I've done this, and it's like, do you need to have the girlfriend first before you find the guy? Or, it's like even with guys, or you show, you seem to connect with somebody, but then it's like, okay, there's not necessarily the follow through. And I know that I've taken even courses about understanding men and all of this, and knowing that when a man is genuinely interested, he will find the time, he will make the effort, that kind of thing. So I don't know, I don't want to be
So,
going in circles,
so is
but
this a relationship you're currently in?
pardon?
Is this like, I'm just trying to understand, is this a relationship you're currently in?
No. So I live by myself, and I was married for like 25 years, and that, I was divorced for what, about 13 years or so. I worked very hard to heal from that, and then And then the next relationship really showed me that's like, wow, I need to go all the way back to my childhood. So I really focused on that and such to do the healing. But I'm not currently, I live by myself. I'm not in a relationship. I'm interested in dating and interested in ultimately having a quality relationship. And I kind of feel like I know what type of man that I want and want to be with. And so,
Yeah.
but it's just, you know,
Well, it's a two-part. So if you figure out if you write on a piece of paper, what type of man do you want to be with? Then the
mm-hmm,
next part is the person that you want, what does this person likely want? So for every quality that you say you want, how would you either exemplify that quality or let that person know you would appreciate that quality? Because it's not like a one-to-one thing. Like if I want a strong person, I don't need to lift 300 pounds like them, but I have to compliment that person. So, and I would also recommend because so many individuals, we underestimate what kind of strides people are making now because of the internet. So, there's bike riding, there's stuff like that, but I would recommend challenging yourself. Learn another language. Like there's all these groups for people trying to learn languages or learn how to do this or learn how to do that. And the irony is the more difficult the task is, the more likely you attract committed people to that. Because not like high commitment people do difficult things. They do difficult
mm-hmm.
things. And that's the hard part is that the more high quality a person we want, the less likely we're going to find them in common places. So if you're not part of something like Toastmasters, I used Toastmasters a long time ago because I had to get better at public speaking. But there's commonality places that people will take part in, like Toastmasters or whatever. But you look
Would
at
you
what
have some other suggestions with that? Because I feel like I'm taking Parks and Rec classes. I'm learning how to do oil painting. I'm learning different skills, but like there's all just women in those particular things that
so it's
I'm
very
learning.
difficult because I don't know you and I don't
Mhm.
like I've never worked with you before. So
Right.
I don't it's hard for me to know like to get a beat on what it's like for someone to experience you, if that makes sense. So like
Sure.
when you're
Sure.
communicating with someone, like I don't know what that's like. And I will say this, like when we're talking about oil paintings, and this is why you have to be clear of like what kind of person you're looking for. So when I'm like a lot of the great guys I know that are in their 60s, the ones that are still working are working. The ones that are retired, every time I turn around, they're at the golfing range. So like my mom is 70 and she basically gets any date she wants because she goes to the golfing range. She's very good at golf, even at 70. My aunt, I occasionally have her on my YouTube video. She's 71 and she's writing books. So she's part of books. She's part of communities where they talk about book writing. So when we look at what the communities are we're part of, we want to ask ourselves, are these communities paying dividends? If not, why am I here? And if
Well, and that's a good point because it's like I do need social, and so those are like social outlets for me to keep me socially healthy and all of that. Um,
yeah,
and you said the Toastmasters and golfing,
yeah,
and so
Toastmasters, golfing, exercise, but a lot of this is the difficult thing. Like, especially a lot of like guys a lot of men are competitive. So a lot of like the events I go to are just going to be full of a bunch of other guys, and we're all going to be in competition together, friendly competition, but we're going to be in competition together to get the best of each other. So like when I go to
right,
the gym, me and my wife will go to the gym and enjoy ourselves, but it's going to be very different from like when me and my buddy Ryan go to the gym and say, "Hey, we're lifting 300 pounds today." So we can talk more on the Patreon, but I would recommend to just really look at what you're interested in doing and how much time are you spent on activities that men are just not present in.
Uh-huh.
And if they're not present, I would recommend try some other activities. I'm not saying you have to give the activities up, but you know, guys will be guys, especially when we're not at work. We want to have fun.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Just
Thank you.
hope that helps. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, Jess, you're next. Xavier, I can get you in a bit. All right, Jess, you're next.
Hey, thank you. This is just an overall question, really. This has been like super insightful, and my question it's not really a question, it's just a thought. I already have a very full, happy life,
Okay.
and like I've been divorced for over 10 years now, and the lonely spells come, but
Mm-hmm.
like how do I how do I let someone in like to my already very full happy life with all of the risks and the time?
Well, because we're saying two things at the same time. We're saying on one end, I have a happy life. On the other end, I'm not fulfilled because I want a relationship. So you were saying two things at the exact same time. So I'm more direct and I say, well, as of right now, you don't have anyone. So what could be
And
the
I'm not like sad, happy, or indifferent about that, but having just a partner through life would be great, but like it's like a give and take. Do I really want to allow another person into my life? And
I would, and I think this is hard to quantify if if you don't have it. So like my wife, the women I know that are married, they're not giving up their husbands for the world because they understand the benefit of having somebody in their corner that truly cares about them.
I
And
fully understand that. My qualm is the dating process, the time, and I know that I have to do all of that to eventually find someone, but that just doesn't seem appealing to me.
and don't do it.
I'd rather just be.
So you're answering your question. Don't do it. You don't have to have a good relationship. You don't have to get husband. You don't have to do any of this stuff. I will say this, as long as the 5, 10, 15, 20-year-old version of you would approve that decision because life gets here quick. Life hit, 5, 10, 15 years goes by very fast. I find dating is like this. It can either be extremely difficult or it can be extremely fun. It's like life itself. Life can be a comedy or it can be a tragedy. But when we talk about this process of getting to know another person, like me personally, and what you find with a lot of men, after you go through school or you open your business or your work or you do whatever, you buy yourself some toys, you have some experiences, at a certain point, life is about people. So when you look at any
And
study,
connections, and I understand that.
yeah. So like every study on happiness has concluded the happiest people are the ones that have good relationships. Whether it's good relationships with a significant other, good friendships, good family, good friends, good children. In general, when we make decisions out of fear, those are not good decisions. If you take almost any movie, the main character the main character doesn't become the good main character until they're not making decisions out of fear. Now, as
Right.
long as you're not making the decision to separate yourself and to be single out of fear, by all means. But if the decision is being made out of fear, fear is your enemy.
I wouldn't say it's fear. I just don't want to disrupt like my already, like I said, full life. And
Well, then this answered your own question.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's
maybe it is a little bit of fear because yeah, meeting new people and allowing people into your space and into your life, that's scary. And I'm not afraid of that. I'm a very optimistic, kind person. I love connection and like I'm just
Well, one
No.
of the things I'm hearing is cognitive dissonance. So on one end, I'm not afraid. On the other end, you're saying everything that would be afraid, that somebody would be afraid. So one of the things is to get clear and honest. And when I say get clear and honest is you get down on a sheet of paper and say, I'm okay living the rest of my life by myself. If that
Which I've
state,
done.
if that statement isn't true for you, then you're going to have to go through the process that almost everybody has to go through. Like when I grew up in Detroit, I grew up in the hood. Almost all my friends were killed or ended up in prison. It was scary to go somewhere else. It was scary to do something else. I was the first male on my side of the family to go to school. In order to do this, I had to walk away from every friendship I had as a kid. But there's no way around it. So life is risky. And I want to leave you with this. Life is so risky, none of us are going to get out of this alive. It's
No
what
one
we
is.
do
I
with
get
life.
that.
Yeah, it's what we do with life. But being alone is risky. Being in a relationship is risky. I would definitely recommend talking on the page, joining the Patreon because me and my wife are going to talk about this concept. Because when I met my wife, she took a risk talking to me and I took a risk talking to her. We took a risk getting married. We took a risk living together. We took a risk starting this business. But we took all these risks that therefore we got all these rewards. So you don't get the rewards without the risk. And you
I
can
understand
you
that.
can live a good life by yourself. But I'm gonna tell you right now, you can't live an amazing life if you don't have an amazing person next to you. There's just levels to this. Just there's levels. And especially like I'll tell you in Michigan, we have something called the Woodward Dream Cruise. And we have all these other events where I see couples, I see married people, I see boyfriend and girlfriends experience. I mean, the hundreds of thousands of people just being in the same time and space, enjoying each other. And there's there's a lot of beauty with the human condition of being with another person. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Yep, I appreciate you. Take care.
You too.
All right, Xavier.
Yes, sir. I'm asking a question for a friend,
Okay,
a female friend. Uh,
absolutely.
couldn't get access to the Zoom for some reason, but she just got out of a bad relationship with a narcissist
Mm,
that pretty much ended up. He was mean to her, and ended up dating her friend or someone she knows and she used to hang out with.
mm.
And I guess and her question is how did well she posed it like what do you do after a narcissist that after being with a narcissist that ran off with your friend? So she's trying to cope with how to deal with all of that at one time.
Absolutely. I think one of the things is to realize labels are important. And one of the labels are if somebody's willing to leave the friendship to go out with your ex, that person's not your friend. That's really an enemy in sheep's clothing. And so I would realistically take an inventory of the people around me and figure out which one of these people really have my back. Because there's something about you that a narcissist found attractive. And what often happens with narcissistic and people with sociopathic and any of these other disorders is they attach themselves to people that they know will fall for their bull crap. So, like, where I'm from in Detroit, if you keep playing games with certain men, somebody's going to end up taking your life. So people are very cautious and they know what they're doing. Another thing is people know what they're doing. You don't go out there and start a fight with a lion if all you have is a brick. So it's a good example of what about me do people see that they can exploit? Am I too trusting? Am I too caring? Am I too empathetic? Is there something about me that I need to stop sharing with people? And I don't share it with people until I figure out that whether they're safe or not. The other thing is, especially if somebody's out there talking about dating, I'm a big believer is nobody can quite size up a man like another man. Like it don't take, you know what I'm saying? It don't take long for us to usually figure out after 30 or 40 minutes whether a guy's on some bull crap. Every time, right?
Ain't that the truth?
Ain't that the truth? We can
I
tell.
size him up almost immediately.
Yeah, because there's a level of danger involved when guys start playing games with other guys. I tell people men are always 3 to 5 sentences away from beating each other up. Meaning that if the relationship can be fine, but let's just say this guy starts talking about my wife, the guy starts talking about my mom, the guy starts talking about my religion or whatever. All right, well, go ahead and get the bail money, honey. You know. So one of the most important things for women to understand is how men think. Spend some time watching men. A good movie for this is the original Godfather.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And see how Michael Corleone went from that transformation of being a humble Marine to the leader of that criminological organization. Because you will see how somebody goes from being a quote unquote respectable, honest guy to essentially becoming a full-blood sociopath. Especially part one and part two, right back to back. So as you learn more about your environment, it's easier to see it. But I chalk it up to for her not to blame herself. There's demons out there. And don't blame you for being tricked by a demon because that's what they do. That's what they do. And don't
That's
appreciate you. And if you got food, okay, chalk it up. It happens. Just don't let them fool you twice. Don't ever let that person back in your life. Don't take their phone numbers. Don't listen to them. If that friend tries to come back, ignore them. If people show you they're not to be trusted, they're not to be trusted. If there's a fence, put them on the other side of the fence. And if they got stuff in your house, they got stuff around it, put that stuff on the other side of the fence too. You make this line and you move accordingly. And that's what I would recommend. And I hope that helps.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Take care. If we have any more people that want to hop on and ask questions, I'm here, but also I'm gonna be here for another 40. Okay. All right. KJ, I'm here. I appreciate you. Go ahead and unmute yourself and let's talk.
Okay, so I have two friends that I have been trying to build a bridge of trust with.
Okay.
And recently I'm trying to improve with them, but I have noticed there's a consistent pattern of them being codependent on each other, even though I was told that I could trust them individually as each person. And one of them is bipolar, while the other one is became the supporting crutch for that person that's bipolar.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure how to approach the interaction of the friendship, either to learn to put the trust at a certain boundary line or try to further see if I can invest in it to trust the person that's bipolar more or less, while the crutch person is not acknowledging the steps taken, but gets irritated very easily if it's kind of expressing myself to that person about how the person who has the disorder is treating me in a certain manner.
Okay.
Now, my question is, how do I approach them separately or together as a pair? And how do I approach the crutch person and how to approach the bipolar person?
Okay. So, um,
Yeah, I know it's a lot.
well, no, I'm very direct. So like me and my wife live a very good life because we're very direct. I don't, I worked very hard not to deal with other people's problems. And what I mean by that is somebody can have issues with their life, but that's
Hmm.
their problems that they need to work on.
Okay.
Unless you have a master's degree or a PhD and you're charging this person $150 an hour or more, it is not fair for you to have to manage their emotions. Like, we are adults here. At a certain point, we don't get to be children. And I'm very direct because people at a certain point know what they're doing. Like, people are not kids. And I don't, yeah. And if somebody does have a mental illness, that's okay. Then they
Hmm.
have to manage that. But because they have that doesn't mean they get to mishandle you and your emotions.
Okay.
And-
Sorry, because when I try to directly in a sensitive manner express myself, the bipolar one tends to open up, while the crutch tends to close off and doesn't want to deal with it.
okay. Then you let them know how you're gonna move and how you're gonna move accordingly. Like, you can
Okay.
appreciate them. Like, I have friends and I love them, and I ain't seen them in 10 years because I love them from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I appreciate y'all. You talk to them separately. I appreciate you, this, but hey, I'm heading in this direction right here. I'm
Okay.
working on this. We can be I'm available for this types of conversation. I'm available for this type of interaction. But one of the things to do is to make it clear where your boundaries are. Make it clear where your boundaries are. And it can sound scary, but most people are not brave. And what I mean by that is, if you say your boundary is this, it takes a really bold person to say, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I'm just going to jump right over that boundary. So what people usually do is we lay out a boundary and then they act like waves on the beach and slowly erode that boundary. And that's why it's so important for us to say, this is how I want to be treated. This is how I need to be treated. And this is the other part that might be tough. If you're ever confused about somebody's friendship, especially over time, I'm going to say between 3 to 6 months, it's time to upgrade friendships. Straight up,
Okay.
straight up. It's a lot easier to get friends than we give it credit for. And so, and I work with so many men about this because so many men are dependent on their friends. And I say, as you level up your life, those people are going to leave you anyway. They're going to be gone. So you might as well prepare to make new friends anyway. Friends that
Okay.
don't have so many issues, that don't have so many constraints. And one of the easiest ways to know whether somebody's good for your life is, do they disrupt your peace? Like, if you're
Mm.
sitting around and you're having a peaceful existence and you're trying to work on your improvement, do they come by and basically kick your peace to the floor? Be very
Mm.
careful of people that disrupt your peace, especially if they disrupt your peace and they don't have peace to offer you. Now,
Okay.
you can love people from a distance, but their struggles are not your struggles. Just like I worked some severe criminal cases. I had PTSD, still dealing with PTSD to this day. That's part of my journey. Does that give me the right to cuss out my wife when I'm not feeling well? No. Better take myself
Okay.
to counseling or coaching or whatever, okay? If I have to go,
Okay.
so just protect yourself, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Yep, you're very welcome. Kind of cute. All right, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I've been talking a bit on the chat earlier. I'm 60. I was married for 29 years. I've been divorced for 13 years. I
Mhm.
tried different, actually, before I got divorced, we were separated for 2 years. I started to go back and do things that I liked, that I kind of dumped because I was busy with taking care of everything and the kids. So I went back hiking. I'd find great people, new friends. It was awesome. It was like 12 years ago. And unfortunately, meetup groups, it's like everything else. The core changed. There were a lot of single people. They find better half, I guess. And then I was friend, and then everybody dumped you because they have a boyfriend or girlfriend,
Mhm.
and at myself, I met some people, but it didn't work. I guess I was not ready for a relationship. Now I'm 60. I'm definitely ready. I learn a lot. I heal myself. I try to go to the for to help me. I'd lost in my family two people that passed away. Well, I was more troubled by that than by getting divorced, actually, because I discovered it cheating on me. But at that point, I was already made the decision I was going to leave him. So it was hard, but not as hard as it could have been, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 29 years, it's a big chunk. I was married young, no experience. So actually, it was a good time to be single again. And now my thing is, I went through a lot of match, harmony, you name it, all that stuff. It's not working.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a bit old fashioned. I'm also from Europe, so I say, oh, it's me. It's the game is not the same. It's a different country. I think it's just because time passed. I was married for a long time, and I thought I was going to be married for the rest of my life, and then I got dumped on the single scene.
Mm.
So I tried so many different things, meetups, going to the gym. Maybe I just, as you were saying, trying new things, and I'm trying to do it. I just lost my job, but now I did. I'm going to start a new job in 2 weeks, so
Mhm.
I'm very happy about that. Put me in a better mind. Um,
Mm.
I don't know where to start again, so I have to start again. I don't know where to what to do.
Yeah. So, well, what's happening is there's too many options. So if we don't start taking options off the plate, then it's hard to focus. So,
Yeah,
like, perfect example is how you sell shoes. You don't sell shoes by bringing out 10 shoes, 10 different options of shoes. Most salespeople bring out two or three. And that's how we start putting our life together, is we start doing it in small chunks. Like if you read any book like Atomic Habits or any of those types of self-improvement books,
I got that for Christmas, so I'm going to read
okay,
it.
it's a good way to start. A good way to start is realizing that I don't have to make massive change. The compound effect of a couple small changes is extremely powerful. So at your age, it's also like, what kind of relationship do I want? Am I trying to start over and start a business in my 60s with a potential man? Am I just trying to live out the rest of my days with some type of peace? You want to get very clear on what type of message you want out there. And the reason that is because different messages hit different people. So like my mom, her message was, I'm retired, I want to have fun. So then she goes out to those places with that messaging, and she gets that kind of person and she's happy with that. Now that's very different from someone that says, "Hey, I'm 65 years old. I want to have a partner for the rest of my life. I want to enjoy some of this stuff that I still have." And that person goes to, a gym or a community for 55 plus. And then the interactions are all like that. So you come across a lot of widowed guys, or you come across some guys that are divorced and they're looking to end, the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, however long they live, they're trying to end their life on a happy note, you know, sharing experience and stuff. But in general, you're talking about a retiree or somebody that's kind of done being, really competitive in the market. So I would start from the basics. read Atomic Habits. If you've already joined the Patreon, that's a good place to start as well because we have over 71 articles on there. And now that me and my wife have committed to start talking about some stuff together, where we can spend a lot more time on it. And I miss Ryan because I mean Ryan's the extrovert in this group, so he's has way more energy. However, we need him on the back end of the company because I mean he's the engineer. But I what's important is your life, you have so much control over it, but you have to decide what you want to do. Like there's so many opportunities now for to connect, but we can't stay still. We have to decide what we want to do. Like I found so many like boomers and Gen X people, and they're part of communities or they're part of programs where they're learning a second language and they're aggressively learning languages. And that's an interesting way to connect with people because you're doing something difficult, but you also need a lot of commitment there. It's like Toastmasters or stuff like Toastmasters, but start from the bottom, deciding what kind of life you want, especially with the end goal in mind, and then you backtrack and create it from there. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I guess, I try so many different things.
Yeah.
I'm starting to be I'm a bit afraid it's not going to work for me, but in the meantime, I reached a milestone as I really consider my ex-husband like the father of my kids. So we have a good relationship, and it took a long time, and it's finally there. So since I saw the change in me since December, believe it or not, that I'm ready to tackle new view. And thank you for your guidance. I think it's going to help me. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Welcome. And you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in yourself.
Oh, I do. I
And the
do.
reason that's so important is you never know how long it's going to take or how quickly it's going to take.
Yeah. And I'm an impatient person, so I know that I have to fight that.
Yep. You got to fight
Yeah.
it. And, there's one thing that's extremely important. And I was going to talk about this in part two, but especially when it comes to men, men cannot help but notice exceptional people. So I always tell women, go to a place where you have a strategic advantage of being in the top 5 or 10% of people in that room. So, for instance, my wife has this unbelievable ability of being able to visually pinpoint longitude and latitude. I have never seen it in my life other than her. So we're at car shows. And remember when you did that at the car show? Those guys still talk about that. When you said what longitude and latitude it was by visually doing it. Yeah, she to the percentage point, it was crazy. Like so many guys asked me, like, where did you find her at? And that's how it often works, is so many men are like little children when we come across something exceptional. So anything that you're exceptional at, that you're used to getting, congratulations from, don't hide it. Those are gifts. Those are gifts.
But yeah, I'm fluent French, as you probably noticed the accent.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I try a club, but everybody's married or something, so it's like kind of
Yeah.
it's a bummer.
Yeah, you want to go to those places you know, that are conduits of people being responsible and caring. So, it's kind of like the nowadays the bar scene and the club scene is kind of falling off. And because more and more of the people that are, especially like now that we have the internet, you can connect with people that are really just almost just like you, whatever that is. So if somebody's into mixed martial arts or somebody's into singing, you can join a place that's just like that. So, you know, focus on, what you want to get better at, focus on your happiness and move forward.